Okay, what a time to be alive, huh? What a blank time to be alive. You could fill in that blank. What a fascinating time. What a terrible time. What a terrifying time to be alive. The needle jumps back and forth for me, as I'm guessing it probably does for you as well. If you're seeing this, or hearing this really, the slideshow's just a reminder of how wide and wonderful this world actually is. If you are seeing this, I assume your needle's probably going back and forth too. These days seem to be, for me, filled with sort of a longing for certain days of the past, certain aspects, concern regarding the present, and kind of a mix of dread and excitement regarding the future. You've been through it. I don't need to remind you of the feeling of family and friends and unfriending you or belittling you or rejecting you. The censoring, the bannings, the hyperinflation, cancel culture, and the so-called race riots that vanished on election day. You're aware of the collapse of our electoral process. You're aware of the potential onset of the Third World War, antagonized and urged on by the Empire of Lies and its cronies and vassals against Eastern Alliance of Sovereign Nations. In other words, the other 80% of the population. You're probably aware of the sociopaths and the narcissists that organize in part under the WEC. You're probably aware that this is merely the visible face of the evil that has stealthily attacked and invaded and infiltrated pretty much every aspect of our lives. From international politics down to municipal governance, every election, every state agency, every media, every state organization, every nonprofit, every charity, every university, big finance, big tech, churches even. But not just here, is it? It seems to be a global struggle. The erosion of culture, the openly stated plan to strip us of our wealth and humanity, create some sort of a sexless, emotionless, sterile slave species, a transhuman agenda, the introduction of propaganda on a mass scale, and you see people destroying themselves. Opioids, alienation, depression, psychiatric drugs, encouraged euthanasia. At some point, you have become painfully aware of these stepping stones that led us here. And at some point, if you're hearing this, I'm guessing that you too came to realizations once. And once you vocalized them, you suffered for it. For me, personally, I learned very quickly at a young age that questioning the events unfolding in front of me on TV one fall morning was catamount to being a terrorist. So I suppressed it, and I pushed it down and held it out. But as time went on, and event after event unfolds in front of me, at some point the tipping point was reached. I view the world as an escape room in a way, with clues that are hidden everywhere on how best to escape. I feel like you can learn from anything. Grasshoppers, coal miners, anything or anyone that one takes the time to explore. And some lessons are immediate, and then some aren't really realized until much later. And sometimes it's just analogous to something else. At one point, I was interested in the world of finance, as far as stocks and trading and reading charts and that sort of thing. And I recall those first few crashes where the floor fell out from an investment or something that I had pinned hopes on. And it was devastating, and it seemed irreparable, a catastrophic. It ruined the day. It would cause panic decisions. And eventually I learned that to expand the chart parameters, in other words, to zoom out, to look at it from a different perspective, a bigger picture shows that what seems like a devastating event was just a mere hiccup in relation to the overall journey. It's all a matter of perspective, sometimes laughably minuscule compared to the way I had reacted. And every now and then I remind myself of this. We're all blinded by our own perspective. We all carry our own illusions and blind spots with us, and we may not even be aware that they exist. No one has the complete picture. No one has the perfect vision. And it is difficult to keep this in mind on a day-to-day basis. The way we each have to sort through the world bit by bit, and it requires a community. And lately I have seen this truther community start to sort of attack each other and criticize each other's ideas. And I think this is folly. I hope to encourage a corrective path away from this. And today I approach this with a big picture in mind. Now, it's not about me. It's about us. We need each other. It can feel hopeless sometimes. Corruption and blackmail running the federal government here in this country. America is intentionally being destroyed, not by stupidity, but by intention. Through stupid people, perhaps. We're in a war zone, and it's deliberate, and it feels hopeless. It feels like we are concerned, but we're powerless, and it can feel like we're heading towards disaster. But this here is not a message of doom, but it's not a prayer either, and it's not some feel-good Hail Mary for hope. It's an analysis. It's a diagnosis conducted in the way that history is studied, by trying to predict what will happen based on what has happened and what's happening now. When I was unceremoniously given the boot for most conversations, as you probably have been, I needed to fill this void. And so, like many lonely folks do, I went to the type of places that people go to seek those conversations when you got to talk to someone. And while actual dive bars are an option, and one that I selected at times, the more interesting conversations I seem to have were in the internet version of a dive bar, places like 4chan. And like a dive bar, you have conversations with folks who are a bit uninhibited, a bit loose in conversation, you could say. And at times you'd have little bits of racism or anti-Semitism or other unsavory viewpoints kind of bubble up from people. And as in a dive bar, you also find good, honest, hardworking people, real people, practical people from all walks of life. And like most dive bars I've ever found myself in, I find it appears I'm ideologically at odds with everyone around me. It's a disparate gathering of conflicting ideas and rejected viewpoints. Completely incompatible, in disagreement with everyone, yet united under the pretense of simply the conversation, being uncensored. That's it. That's it. Libertarians, nationalists, yesterday's liberals who found themselves today's conservatives by the standards that have shifted, the independents who were just let down by lies and illusion, and arguments were fierce and bitter. We had very little in common except nothing was off the table. No cow was too sacred. No historical figure untouchable. And it was this writhing mass of humanity in this internet dive bar that was once suddenly lumped all together by labels during a political campaign in 2016. We were suddenly alt-right deplorables. We dabbled in conversations that were taboo. The demonization of white and Europeans, the trampling of constitutional rights, the fields of science that were unpopular amongst universities. These areas of taboo, this is the soup that all good comedians pull from. But comedians have grown cowardly for the most part. And it seems to me that the result of that little hodgepodge in that taboo soup was meme culture. And that the stuff coming out of it was hilarious. And it was quick, and it was funnier, and it was more true than the legacy media output. And as you know, the result was that one day, the establishment woke up and realized that they had lost an election. They had lost it to they lost an election to the most powerful position in the most powerful country, at least at the time, in the world. And they lost it to a brash, unfiltered TV star. But it was never about the 45th president. It was never about one man. One man could be controlled. And this is what we largely didn't understand then, and for the most part, it appears we don't understand now. The reaction that they had, out of fear, it wasn't him that they feared. They were afraid of us. They were afraid of what happened right under their noses, brewing in the back channels of the internet. They were afraid of this collective that had hatched and stretched and put forth a bit of its power, and the result was the 45th presidency. And it proved that it could change the world. But we were too young, and we are too young as a group. We haven't really realized this yet, but they recognized it. They recognized it because in a way we had become an adolescent, but mirror image to them. This sprawling collective with no center, which mirrors their entrenched bureaucracy. Cut one head off, new ones pop up. Everywhere and nowhere at the same time. No central command center. They know that system well, and they know the power of it. And as you know, the vast majority of the world's economy is controlled by this tightly linked financial group of people. There's no focus. There's no one voice giving the others, at least giving the orders, at least that we know of. And so it is with our collective. It's the same. And it was one that could potentially go head-to-head with them and contend with them. And that presidency proved that. It could challenge them. And they had to destroy it. And so a list of ban topics was created, and mass bannings and infiltration and poisoning the well with misinformation. But we weren't destroyed, were we? We're still here. We took the hits. But we ended up being too nimble. And we adapted. And we created new platforms. Or we found new platforms. We adjusted. We spread out to different channels. We took new pseudonyms. We reached out to unemployable victims of doxing and lifted them up. We supported each other. We grew smarter. They cut one head off. 3 more appear. And then a funny thing happened when I look at us from this bigger picture. It seems that our ranks were suddenly bolstered by a massive influx of a different kind of anon. And they were anons that operated under the banner of the 17th letter. Call it what you may. Think of it what you may. And there's no doubt that at some point along that line, that particular ride was hijacked and psyoped until it was driven into the ground. But it is undeniable that suddenly the ranks of the unwanted were bolstered with baby boomers. Suddenly, you had some family members that you could actually discuss some of these topics with at Thanksgiving. A grandmother or parents. Because now all the soccer moms and the Mexicans for Trump and the blue-collar workers and the ex-military, patriots from all walks of life had all been deplatformed and all banned and lumped together with us. You don't want them? Fine. And suddenly there were a lot more of us. A huge injection of even more disparate conflicting ideologies. Did we splinter? Did we fracture? No, we argued. We had bitter arguments, fierce arguments, and we shed some illusions, and so did they. And once the arguments wind down, the teaching begins, the comparing notes, and our collective adapted and strengthened because of it, and we were all the better for it. To engage with this collective is to join it, to be seduced by it, to be changed by it, and most importantly, to change it. We find a new equilibrium, and we keep searching, and we keep prying at loose ends, and casting off the parts that don't fit. A collection of incompatible ideologies but bound together by the search for truth. In a fair fight, the truth wins every time against the lie. But our enemy relies on a tightly woven construct of lies. It cannot adapt. It needs rigidity. It needs unwavering, airtight messaging across all platforms to avoid contradiction. And they were losing the grip of this narrative. And so they kicked it into overdrive. You remember. The COOF. The list of topics exploded to include all matters of virology, pharmacology, immunology. They faked a race war that vanished on election day. They took away the streets. They isolated and contained. They stole an election in front of the whole world. Anyone who pointed it out was denounced as a traitor, a terrorist, death cult members. We were locked down. We were isolated. We were muzzled. Proper thinking not enough to keep your job now. Now you have to take a Jabberwocky. And this is worldwide. Yellow vests crushed. Populist leaders thrown out of office in Austria and Italy, Bojo punting Brexit, millions of people under house arrest, assaulted by a devastating wave of propaganda, and millions tuned in to Netflix and chose the hypnosis. And it seems hopeless. But for all the millions that tuned into the hypnosis, millions more didn't. This collective we shared is based on forbidden topics, dangerous talk, hippie nonsense, occult studies, hidden history, conspiracy theories. And that's the juice that we live on. And we are merely in an incubative state, where this is a larva. We are unsure of who we are still. And all of this is a very painful process, stripping ourselves of these illusions. But we're doing it together. And when they did this, the list of banned topics exploded and actual cures were suppressed. This clashed with thousands of doctors and health professionals from all walks of life. Many of them ultra-liberal politically. If any of them asked the wrong questions, gave the wrong interview, they by necessity were cut from their team. You don't want them? Fine. And so we got another massive influx of people who found themselves lumped in with the far-right populist nationalists, the Trumpites, the conspiracy theorists, the rejected soup, the collective. And this time, the injection was thinkers, doctors, researchers, teachers with advanced pedigrees. And what happened? Did we reject them or they us? No. Did we splinter? No. We said, come on in. Join the conversation. There's a chair right here. We're going to have to iron out a few of those illusions you come through the door with, and we ask that you, in turn, iron a few of ours out as well. And again, the debates and the clashes, the settling down, the sharing of ideas, the shedding of ideas that don't work, the adaptation of ideas that do work. And the hive, the equilibrium, the mental equilibrium, we find a new one in our hive mind. And our collective is now more powerful with more variance. And it seems like there's been a shift. The media seems like they are on the defense. And the media is backpedaling. And they can't ignore us any longer. So they have to address us. They have to lie about how and why we should be ignored. But they're forced to react to us. So when you zoom out and you look at this, the opposing forces in this battle, you see the strategies unfold. And you see the patterns. What has happened and is happening. And in many ways, there's been sort of a fumbling. And they've lost part of the narrative. You see, the one side has the idea of the future that is totalitarian in its desire for control. They want to control every aspect of your finances, your sexual relations, your diet, your movement, your housing, your employment. You won't fly, you won't drive, you won't travel, you won't have kids. If you do, the state will raise them for you. You give up your guns, you celebrate what we tell you, you give up your land and your customs, you'll own nothing, you'll be happy. A happy little slave. They have to create the crisis and terrify people in order to get them to give things up that they shouldn't. And these people are so hypnotized or so scared, they don't seem to notice that the people telling them to give things up are in no hurry to follow their own advice. So these fear tactics, they need the deception. They need the narrative to justify what they're doing. And so since they need the lie, the truth has to be suppressed. And since they want total control, the lie needs to be total. It needs to touch every aspect of our lives. That's a lot of truth that needs suppressing. And so the tactics they employed the last 2 years, if that's a preview of what they intend, that is terrifying. But if the last 2 years is a preview for them of that which they must contend, imagine how terrifying we must appear to them. And they're probably grateful that we haven't noticed this yet. In order for their tyranny to be put in place, they have to silence dissenters. And those dissenters then find themselves in the same dive bar with us. Well, come on in. You don't want them? Fine. Come on in, pharmacists, doctors. Come on in, yoga healers and dietitians. Come on in, Trump moms, libertarians, Amish farmers. Come on in. Truckers, come on in. Energy gurus, martial arts masters, come on in. Scientists and internet explorers, come in. Conspiracy theorists, pull up a chair. Join the conversation. And they have. And here we are. Stronger still. Each one of us obsessed with, individually focused on a particular facet of the lie, a particular injustice, an area of expertise that you can't let go. Everyone here throwing around ideas playfully, not as fact, as a suspicion, as a maybe. Are any of them true? It sure seems like it, but we are aware of our gullibility and our ignorance. And the list of banned topics grows daily now. Diet, race, biological sex. And as that list grows, by default, so does our collective. All pushed into conversation with us. To talk with us is to engage with us. It's to be seduced by us and to be changed and to change us. And no one goes back. So what we have here, big picture, is a mirror image of what our enemy is. A collective with no central point, everywhere and nowhere. The difference is theirs is fragile, theirs is false, and it protects itself. Its defense is systematically excluding reality. Ours is free. It encourages growth. It encourages organic exploration. Distinctly human, not mechanical. Human, not transhuman. Their system excludes exploring. It forbids questioning. So carefully crafted and constructed it needs to be, or the whole thing collapses. By contrast, you can remove massive chunks of what we thought was true, and we're the better for it. We evolve, and we adapt, and we reconfigure. Contradiction is our fuel. This isn't ideological. This is practical. This is results-oriented. Not asking what should we believe, asking what's true, how to succeed in living the lives we want, asking how to create the best world for our children, asking what our optimal diet is, how best we should organize ourselves. Most people want to be left alone to pursue what interests them. And as more and more of those topics that people like are taboo, the more people get cut off from the herd. You don't want them? Fine. There's a home for them here. So my friends, if you're hearing this, take heart. Take heart. No matter how militantly, state-defending, anti-conspiratorial, closed-minded your former friends and your family members are, no matter how thoroughly they have rejected you, even they do not have a place within the world the enemy has planned for us, which means all of them eventually have to be pushed towards this conversation, to be seduced by us, to change us, and to be changed by us. Our enemy doesn't allow for experimentation or questioning. It demands obedience. We want nothing more than for people to keep doing what they're doing so that their projects should flourish, and we will all be the more better for it. This gathering of suppressed knowledge and hidden techniques is a gathering of all races, a collective of all peoples from all corners of the earth. It has to be. So it seems that our enemy, so-called globalism, has created in us is a true global counterculture, is a true worldwide counterculture comprised of every race, of every walk of life, with wildly conflicting ideologies, but a cohesive worldview and communication with and operating harmoniously with in accordance with each other. And it touches on every aspect of human experience. Many different belief systems, but self-organizing everywhere and nowhere at the same time. So here on this precipice, at what feels like a deep breath before the plunge, here on the edge of this, the brink of what seems to be disastrous and hopeless, and it seems we're all looking around asking each other, well, someone going to do something about this? Or are we just going to stand here? And here, I don't offer you a prayer or a Hail Mary or a desperate glimpse of hope or an inspiring vision. I'm offering you a view from a larger picture, and I'm showing you a pattern, our pattern, what has happened and what is happening, a pattern we seem to be maintaining. And as they tighten their circle of wagons, we grow stronger by the day. It means someone is doing something, and we are that someone. And whatever we're doing, we seem to be winning. And maybe it doesn't have to be so drastic. Based on this pattern of what has happened and what is happening. Seems as long as we stay on course, we will continue to win. So I encourage you, whomever manages to hear this, though we may not have much in common, I salute you and I encourage you to keep on, to keep pushing, to keep searching, to keep poking and prodding, keep learning, keep teaching, keep watching, keep praying, keep doing what you do, and keep being who you are. Because we're the same thing. We are the collective. And if there's one thing our enemy did get right, we are all in this together. Don't give up on your loved ones. Keep a spot open at that table. Because they may be running late, but they're on their way. Whether or not they know it. All my love and all my support goes out to all of you. And no matter how much time is given me in this realm, I know for certain in the end, it will never be enough time to have spent amongst such admirable and excellent people. So to answer that question, what a time to be alive? Let me ask you a different question. If you were given the opportunity to choose the time period in which you were alive, and you knew that at some point there was going to be a conflict that could challenge the existence, the continuance of us as a species, would you want to opt out, choose an earlier timeline, and trust that battle left in the hands of complete strangers? Or would you say, nah, if there is a battle for the soul of humanity, I want to be there in the thick of it. I want to be part of the generation that saved the world. I know which one I'd rather be. What's a perfect time to be alive?